What if those who nurtured you were the first to pin your tale of defeat? I'm Ethan. I'm 29, self-made. And let me tell you, money doesn't protect you from family chaos. In my experience, it only intensified the fallout. I've been hustling since I was 18, crafting my own business after leaving college. My parents believed I was making the biggest mistake of my life. If this tale captivates you, tap that like button to show your support. Subscribe to stay updated on what unfolds next, and share this with someone who needs to remember that success is the ultimate revenge. 3 weeks after they cast me aside, I returned to their world, not to seek assistance, but to claim something they never thought I could possess. You'll never amount to anything without a degree, my mom said, stirring her coffee dramatically. My dad grunted in agreement, his usual way of brushing me off. They had no idea I was already building my first online venture, a niche e-commerce store that would soon blossom into a series of companies raking in millions each year. Back then, they only saw a reckless, naive kid avoiding hard work. We were never close. My parents valued appearances and status above all. My older sister, Sophie, was their shining star. A corporate lawyer with a flawless LinkedIn profile, designer handbags for every season, and a chilling confidence that silenced the room. She was the success story they showcased to family friends. I became the cautionary tale. Each dinner visit turned into a stage for their jabs, masked as concern. Still doing that little internet thing? My dad would chuckle, as if it were just a phase I'd eventually outgrow, like collecting comic books. Sophie smiled politely, saying, "You know, it's never too late to get a real job." For years, she let it slide, believing there was no point in defending herself. No one would take me seriously. Honestly, I was swamped. Creating a business from scratch demands all your strength, and I lacked the stamina to convince those who had already labeled me a failure. I lived in silence. I never boasted about my wealth. I kept to myself the fact that I owned my home outright by 27 or that I could jet off anywhere at a moment's notice. I smiled through the family dinners, endured the comments, and returned home to the life they thought I didn't have. Then came the breaking point on a rainy Thursday evening. My mom texted, asking for help with something at the family estate. Upon arrival, I found my dad in the lounge, restless and pacing. Sophie lounged on the couch, wine in hand, a smirk on her face as if she relished my impending doom. My mom stood by the stone hearth, arms crossed, poised to deliver a crushing revelation. "Ethan," my dad began, "we need to talk. You're 32 now, and this online nonsense isn't fading. You've had your chance to find your path, yet here you are, squandering your potential." I felt my jaw clench. "What are you really saying?" He halted his pacing and gestured to the door. "You've been in that apartment for years, yet here you are, still seeking help with trivial matters. I can't believe this." I stared, bewildered. "Enabling me? Money? I've never asked for anything, not once." Sophie chuckled softly. "Oh, really, Ethan? You've been drifting. Do you really think anyone buys that you're thriving with your small venture? It's honestly pathetic." My mom interjected, her tone cutting. "It's time for you to truly stand on your own. No more seeking our help. No more relying on us to rescue you." I gazed at them, speechless. "I don't need your help. I'm perfectly fine on my own." My dad's voice escalated. "If you're truly doing well, then show it by making it on your own. In fact, you can walk away right now. Hit the streets if you must. Perhaps that will jolt you awake." Silence enveloped the room, broken only by the rain tapping against the windows. I caught a glimpse of Sophie, savoring her wine as if it were the climax of a long-awaited drama. My heart raced, but I fought to remain composed. They believed they were handing out a brutal wake-up call. They expected me to plead, to vow change, or to find a proper job. Little did they know, I could purchase their home thrice without dipping into my savings. I grabbed my jacket from the chair and put it on. "All right," I whispered, a hint of a smile playing on my lips. "If that's what you want." My mom's lips parted, likely to deliver another jab, but I cut her off before she could speak. I stepped outside, closing the door with finality. Sliding into my car, a worn black sedan they thought I could barely afford, I glimpsed my reflection in the rearview mirror. I felt no anger. I felt no pain. Instead, a strange amusement washed over me, for I held a secret they were blissfully unaware of. A revelation awaited them, one that would etch itself into their memories forever. As the rain lashed down, I sped into the night, aware that in 3 weeks, their perception of me and themselves would crumble. The first week after they cast me out was unsettlingly silent. Not in an emotional sense. Thoughts raced through my mind, yet silence enveloped me. No calls, no texts, no follow-ups. I didn't anticipate an apology, but a small part of me hoped they'd at least see if I was all right. But there was nothing. It felt like I had vanished from the family entirely. Those days blurred together as I toiled away in my home office. Though calling it that feels inadequate. It was a sleek luxury loft, towering over the city, with expansive windows and a study filled with leather-bound books I had gathered through the years. The skyline loomed before me, a stark reminder of my journey from the boy labeled a failure. By the second week, whispers reached my ears, mutual acquaintances dropping hints that my parents and Sophie were uneasy, not worried for my health, but shaking their heads, declaring I had finally hit rock bottom. My mother had shared with her church friends that I was now living out of my car after my little internet project fell apart. Sophie had informed one of my old high school friends that I was finally facing life's lessons the hard way. They weren't merely depicting me as a failure. They were weaving the story. One night, a message from my cousin Daniel pierced through. He was one of the rare family members who had always seen me as an equal. Daniel, hey man, I heard something tonight. Are you all right? Me? What does all right even mean? Daniel, your mom was spreading the word at dinner that you're practically homeless. She mentioned you'll likely be back soon, begging for help. Me? Intriguing. Daniel, too. Sophie joked about you possibly doing odd jobs for her firm when you're in a pinch. She mentioned you'd suit the role of coffee runner. I lingered on that final message, absorbing each word. It wasn't unexpected. Sophie had always thrown those jabs, but now, after they'd already cast me aside, it felt like a punch to the gut. It felt like witnessing the flames consume a bridge I had vowed never to cross again, ensuring its destruction. As the third week approached, I chose to attend my parents' Sunday dinner, not as a guest, but as a silent observer, uninvited yet present. Daniel had said these dinners became a weekly ritual after I left. I arrived in my car, my other car, the one they didn't know I had. A sleek silver coupe that commanded attention effortlessly. I parked a short distance away, hidden from view. Through the banquet hall window, I caught sight of them. My parents at the head of the table, Sophie beside them, all laughter and joy. The scene was alive, glasses clinking, plates overflowing. I envisioned the scene. Sophie sharing her latest triumph, my parents glowing with pride, and then, as if scripted, the inevitable jab about my ingratitude, my squandered potential. Anger had faded. Instead, a chilling clarity settled in, a piercing realization. This was more than my departure from their home. It was about them twisting my life into a cautionary tale, reshaping my journey into a narrative of failure to elevate their own sense of righteousness and control. 2 days later, my mom called. It wasn't to mend things, it was a request. Her voice was light, teasing. Ethan, darling, your father and I need your help moving some old furniture next weekend. With nothing else on your plate, you should have plenty of time. I had to stifle a laugh, biting my cheek. Apologies, but I'm occupied, she sighed, as if I were intentionally being a challenge. Busy with what? Work. A small, knowing laugh escaped her lips. Absolutely. Your priorities. Just remember to carve out moments for family, all right? You may find us essential one day. In that instant, I saw the true depth of their condescension. They honestly thought they were my safety net, ready to catch me when life knocked me down. They couldn't grasp that I didn't need them, hadn't needed them for years. Even as they belittled me, a flicker of defiance stirred within. I chose to play along, knowing that revealing everything too soon would dull the impact. Not yet. I'd allow them to heap insults, layer on the lies, and bury themselves deeper in their own deceit. Because when the truth emerged, I wanted it to strike them with such force that they'd be left shattered by the humiliation. That moment was approaching, much sooner than expected. By the fourth week, I found a strange calmness in the chaos. I understood my place among them, and sleep was no longer a concern. Just when I believed I had witnessed the depths of their pettiness, they sank even lower. It began on a Thursday morning with an email from my bank. Subject line: unusual account activity, immediate attention required. Initially, I suspected a phishing scam, but when I accessed my account, I was paralyzed. Two massive withdrawals, each exceeding $7,000, had drained one of my old accounts. Though I hadn't used it in ages, it remained open, linked to a joint savings plan my parents had set up for me in my youth. Years passed, and I intended to close it, but it faded from memory. Two withdrawals, both in person, both from a branch just 2 blocks from my family's estate. I searched for a rational explanation, perhaps a banking mistake, perhaps identity theft. But when I contacted the branch and learned the details, my heart sank. The teller recalled the withdrawal vividly. She claimed my mother had entered, stated I'd given her permission to withdraw funds for a family emergency, and left with a cashier's check each time. My hands trembled, caught between the shock of the theft and the chilling ease with which she took what was mine, as if it were hers to claim at will. I held back from calling her. I craved calmness, but chaos consumed me. So, I reached out to Daniel instead. "You won't believe this," I said, revealing the shocking truth. Silence hung heavy. "Ethan, I think I know where that money went." "Where?" He paused, uncertainty gripping him. Sophie had just put a down payment on a new luxury SUV, boasting about it being a family gift for her relentless efforts. The words struck cold and hard. It wasn't enough for them to see me as a failure. They had taken from me to elevate Sophie. My mother strolled into a bank, drained my account without a second thought, and sent the money straight to the favored one, all while convincing herself it was right. That night, I drove to the family estate. I didn't step inside. I wasn't prepared for the confrontation, but I parked across the street and sat there, eyes fixed on the warmly lit windows. Inside, I spotted them in the lounge area. Sophie held up a letter. My dad laughed, clapping her on the shoulder as if she had just achieved something monumental. Time blurred as I sat there, but the sensation in my chest transformed. Until that moment, a faint, lingering thread of loyalty had restrained me from crossing the line. In that instant, seeing them revel with my hard-earned cash, everything shattered. A few days later, my mom texted me. "Hope you're not too bothered about the savings account. It sat there, a silent witness, while your sister cried out for help. Money will come, but family? They are everything." I fixated on that message, absorbing its coldness. No remorse, no recognition of the wrong, just a self-satisfied rationale. I stayed silent. In that instant, a transformation occurred within me, from silent endurance to unyielding determination. It was no longer about demonstrating my worth to them. This was about revealing that the bridge they burned had transformed into an impenetrable fortress, forever out of reach. They were about to discover the true weight of that reality. After the SUV incident, the air around me thickened, not as if I were suffocating, but like the charged silence before a storm. My anger had cooled, transformed into something deeper. The weight was subtle, yet it lingered in my bones, an unshakable reminder. I kept it to myself, sharing it with no one, neither friends, nor colleagues, nor even my business partners. I craved no pity. Deep down, I felt a sting of shame for letting myself be so vulnerable, so easily exploited. I was meant to be sharp, cautious, and calculated. I had left that account open, an invitation to chaos, and they had stepped in without hesitation. In the weeks that followed, I withdrew from it all, skipping meetings and retreating into silence. I turned down social invites. I even missed a quarterly networking event I always attended, just to avoid questions about my family. I claimed I was swamped with big projects. Yet, there I was, ensconced in my luxury loft, cocooned by silence. It wasn't depression, not in the conventional sense. I rose with the dawn, pushed through my workouts, and maintained my businesses with precision. Yet, a deep ache lingered within me, an emptiness that gnawed at my core. Each memory of my parents and Sophie played out like a relentless film, where I remained the unwitting punchline to their shared laughter. One night, I perched at my kitchen island, whiskey in hand, lost in old photos on my phone. One caught my eye. 5 years back, my parents and Sophie beaming in front of a rented beach house, while I lingered on the edge, half in the frame. That was the year they forgot to tell me the trip was already set when they invited me. I found myself on a couch in the lounge while Sophie claimed the master suite. The longer I stared at that picture, the clearer it became. This was familiar. The theft, the lies, the public humiliation. It was merely the latest act in a lifelong drama. Always the one expected to bend, to sacrifice, to silently endure their cruelty. Perhaps that's why they believed they could steal my money and escape unscathed. They expected me to sulk, to turn away, but then return for Sunday dinner as if nothing had changed. That's when my mind began to twist, not toward an immediate confrontation. I held back from charging in and demanding my money. Instead, I focused on leverage, on timing, imagining the satisfaction of not just exposing them, but shattering the illusion they crafted. I began with a whisper. My lawyer initiated the quiet takeover, securing every account, every property, every asset in my name, leaving no vulnerability for them to seize. I contacted a discreet source, an expert in uncovering hidden financial and legal records. I expressed my desire to understand my family's financial landscape, not out of urgency, but because I sensed this knowledge would prove invaluable later on. As everything unfolded, I remained distant. No calls, no texts, no attendance at family gatherings. I aimed for them to acclimate to my absence, to believe they had effectively banished me for good. Their comfort was a trap, a prelude to the inevitable shock. That distance came at a cost. Some nights, as I sat in my lounge, the city lights sprawling beneath me, the realization struck hard. My circle had shrunk to nothing. My friends were silent observers. Daniel reached out, but I kept it brief. It felt simpler to retreat into my thoughts than to reveal my goals. I recognized the isolation, the unhealthy choice, yet it felt essential. With something this monumental at stake, there was no room for error. Sloppiness was not an option. A date began to take shape in the depths of my thoughts. I left it unmarked, unwritten. Yet, I felt the weight of its impending arrival. I knew precisely where they'd be when it all unfolded. The change was subtle at first, akin to adjusting a dimmer switch. One week, I was lost in the noise. The next, I was laser-focused, embracing my routines with an intensity one hadn't experienced in ages. I plunged into my businesses, awakening to a clarity that revealed how much I had been drifting. My flagship company thrived for years, yet two expansion projects loomed over me, one in Europe, the other in Southeast Asia. In a bold move, I greenlit both within the same week. It required assembling new teams, building alliances, and securing multi-million-dollar contracts to establish our brand worldwide. The staggering revenue was compelling, but my true drive was to make my influence and reach unmistakable. I aimed for a footprint so vast that, when the time arrived, my identity and achievements would be unmistakable. Concurrently, I began to network with purpose, choosing high-stakes investor dinners, tech summits, and charity galas over ordinary mixers. I positioned myself in spaces my family could only fantasize about. I exchanged greetings with individuals who could, with one call, alter the course of an entire industry. And I did it all in silence. No social media boasting, no announcements, just a secret waiting to be uncovered by others. By mid-year, a software startup I had backed was snatched up for 8 figures. My share was enough to purchase half the homes in my parents' neighborhood outright. The week the deal closed, I transferred a hefty sum into an already brimming investment account. The remainder went into ventures designed to amplify growth. Yet, the true strength lay beyond the money itself. It was all about the connections. In a Manhattan cafe, I sat across from a powerful editor of a national business magazine. Our conversation flowed over cappuccinos, and amidst the laughter and the bill, she hinted at a feature on underestimated self-made entrepreneurs. I felt the irony. I didn't say a word, but her card remained in my wallet. The moment wasn't right. As the reports from my financial contact arrived, they revealed a stark reality about my family's situation. My parents' retirement savings were far more fragile than I had imagined. Sophie, even with her lucrative job, was buried under a mountain of debt, a result of poor investments and an insatiable craving for luxury she couldn't sustain. The SUV? Just a lease. The down payment they swindled from me barely scratched the surface of the fees. and she had secretly taken a second mortgage on her condo last year. Knowing their vulnerability was more than satisfying. It meant that when the moment arrived, my next actions would resonate deeply, far beyond mere emotions. It seemed sensible, real. Yet, I maintained my distance beneath the surface. The family continued their Sunday dinners, spoke of me in the past tense, and maintained the story that I was lost in some distant reality. Yet, whispers from mutual acquaintances revealed cracks in their confidence. A friend of Sophie's claimed to have seen me at a luxury hotel in Singapore, caught in a meeting with a group of sharply dressed executives. My mother's hairdresser whispered of a CEO named Ethan, sealing a monumental deal abroad. Whispers grew, curiosity and unease thickening the air. I chose to wait, letting the tension simmer. Power unveils itself in measured moments, and I had no intention of squandering it on an early clash. I aimed to keep them disoriented, doubting every certainty they held, until the moment I would pull the rug from beneath them entirely. When that day arrived, it would transcend mere vindication. It would redefine everything. They would grasp, without question, that their part in my story was finished. Revenge isn't a race, it's an art. It's not about seizing the first opportunity. It's about biding your time until the moment is flawless, unassailable, ensuring your strike leaves no room for doubt or escape. The information my contact gathered was now complete, and the paper before me confirmed my suspicions. My family's facade of stability was just an illusion. My parents teetered on the edge of downsizing, yet clung to their denial in public. Sophie's financial reality hit harder than I imagined. Credit cards were maxed, loans piled high, and that SUV lease loomed over her like a storm. She was even missing payments on her second mortgage. A single detail seized my focus above all. Hidden within my father's financial records lay a note about an early investment in a struggling property development company, one that had been silently teetering on the edge for the past year. The twist? My father had personally backed a loan for the company. If it failed, he'd be liable for the entire sum, far exceeding 6 figures. And from the reports, it was mere months from disaster. That was when I realized how to orchestrate the scene. I didn't have to ruin them financially. That would only paint me as vengeful. Instead, I had to set the stage for their own downfall, where their arrogance and assumptions would lead to their undoing, while I stood in a place they could never foresee. Not long after, the editor of the business magazine I had met in Manhattan reached out. She was launching her Underestimated Entrepreneurs feature and wanted me as the focal point. Not just a brief mention, but a multi-page spread filled with professional photos, my entire journey, and a spotlight on those early days when everyone said I wouldn't succeed. I agreed right away, but I had one condition. The release date needed to match a specific month, the month my father's crumbling investment was set to collapse. Just as everything began to align, an unforeseen opportunity appeared before me. A real estate investment firm I had previously partnered with contacted me with an enticing offer. They were in the process of acquiring distressed assets from smaller developers and required a trusted source of capital. Having been one of their top investors before, they were giving me the first opportunity on these deals. As I glanced at the list of properties, a laugh nearly escaped me. There it was, marked in red as high risk, a block of half-finished townhomes, the pride of my father's faltering property company. I hesitated, weighing my options. I posed questions, scrutinized the contracts, and strategically placed myself for the moment the company faltered, as the report hinted it would. I could seize the entire project through the investment firm for a mere fraction of its worth. My father's company would crumble, and I'd possess it without facing him. The cherry on top? It would appear merely as a savvy business decision on my end. No direct assault. No obvious grudge. As the wheels turned, I stayed away from the family, yet ensured my name lingered in their talks. Daniel told me my mom wondered if I'd gotten lucky since she heard I was flying first class internationally. Sophie had asked someone if I was truly doing well or just faking it. Their curiosity was palpable, eating away at them. Curiosity would soon twist into shock. I wasn't merely stepping into power. I was on the brink of mastering a game they didn't even know existed. When the moment arrived to act, it would be unmistakable, powerful, and precisely aligned with their greatest need. As the month drew near, Everything I had meticulously arranged over the last 6 months stood poised like a row of dominoes, waiting for the slightest nudge. I just needed to push the first one. The business magazine hit newsstands on the first Monday of the month. My face graced the cover. A polished suit, city skyline looms. Bold headline strikes. From uncertainty to power, the self-made visionary who defied all odds. The article skirted around my family, yet the message was unmistakable. They said I would fail. Those I trusted doubted me. Yet, in silence, I forged an empire worth millions. The moment was electric. Within hours, the piece exploded online, shared across social media, business groups, and even LinkedIn circles my sister frequented. That same day, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Colleagues, old friends, distant acquaintances, all were celebrating my moment. Just as I anticipated, the message from my mother arrived. Ethan, we saw the magazine. We had no clue it had escalated this much for you. We're proud of you. Proud. Those words lingered in my mind, heavy and hard to swallow. Years of being overlooked. Years of betrayal. And now, they stood with pride. I stayed silent. 2 weeks passed, and my father's property development company collapsed under its loan. The bank acted fast, and the investment firm I had teamed up with seized the project for a fraction of its worth. As intended, my investment secured me control over the entire development. On paper, it seemed like just another savvy deal. In truth, I possessed the deed to my father's most significant asset, all while he remained oblivious. 3 days passed in silence. Then, I had my assistant set up a meeting with my parents and Sophie at an upscale restaurant downtown. The invitation masked as a business opportunity, and after the magazine feature, their eagerness was palpable. They arrived beaming. My mother embraced me after years apart. My father clasped my hand firmly, as if we were longtime associates. Sophie praised my suit, her tone laced with an unfamiliar politeness. We ordered dinner, shared casual conversation, and then, midway through the main course, I pushed a folder across the table. Inside lay the ownership document for the development they had been holding on to as their major investment. My father's smile wavered as he read it. This is our property, he said slowly. Correction, I replied, my voice steady. It was yours. Now it belongs to me. They looked at me, speechless. I spoke calmly, without triumph, simply presenting the truth. Their company had failed. The bank had abandoned the project. I purchased it legitimately, at a reasonable cost, from a reputable company. I articulated it as a surgeon would detail a flawless incision. Exact, detached, definitive. My mother's cheeks burned crimson. Ethan, how could you? How could I? I interrupted, my voice edged, just a touch. The same way you invaded my bank account and stole my money without asking. You handed it to Sophie as if it belonged to you. You tossed me out of your home, branding me homeless. I've simply learned from the master. Sophie's jaw clenched, silence hanging heavy. My father leaned back, eyes flitting between the documents and my expression. In that moment, he seemed diminished, not in stature, but in essence. I leaned in, elbows on the table. The truth is, I didn't need to lie or steal to get here. I played the long game. And now, when this development turns a profit, and it will, not a cent will bear your name. The table fell silent, save for the clink of cutlery from nearby diners. No one dared to argue. They remained silent, the gravity of the moment pressing down like a thick mist. I ate my meal without a word, settled the bill, and rose to leave. Have a great evening, I said, my voice smooth, almost indifferent. And don't fret about the crew at the construction site. I've assured them that the change in ownership won't impact their positions, just yours. I turned and walked away, leaving them bathed in the warm glow of the chandeliers, the chill of their new reality creeping in. The fallout hit harder than I anticipated. 3 days after that dinner, Daniel called. His voice was low, wavering between concern and awe. Your parents are losing it, he said. Your dad's been holed up for 2 days. Mom's reaching out, desperate to mend things, but everyone knows you own the place. And whispers are spreading. The story had escaped the confines of our family. My father's failed investment was no longer a private shame. It had become common gossip among their acquaintances. The very guests they once dazzled at dinner parties now murmured about their reckless son, who had deftly outsmarted them in business. I didn't need to do a thing. A twist like this was too tantalizing to remain unspoken. Sophie faced her own struggles. With her SUV lease ending and no parental safety net for emergencies, she had to settle for something far less extravagant. For someone whose identity revolved around opulence, this felt like a devastating blow. I later learned she had discreetly listed her condo, battling her debts. My parents reached out twice in the following weeks. The first was a text from my mom. "Can we talk? We're still family." I brushed it off. Then came the voicemail from my dad. His voice trembled. "We must discover a path ahead. You can't abandon us like this." I erased it before it finished. The truth is, I hadn't severed ties in a fit of rage. I just realized there was nothing more to save. They revealed their true selves by stealing from me, lying about me, and reveling in my supposed failure. I merely mirrored their actions, all while holding onto my integrity. Months later, the project finally yielded profits. Townhomes flew off the market, and my returns overshadowed the theft they'd committed. I'd often pass by the site, witnessing families settle in, children laughing and playing on the new streets. It belonged to me now, forged from their pride and my endurance. Sunday dinners became a distant memory. In truth, they vanished from my life entirely. Whispers reached Daniel. His parents had sold their getaway. Sophie was drowning in extra cases just to survive. They were fragments of a life that had slipped away. The last message from my mother came in a terse, fragile email. "You've changed." I read it twice, then shut my laptop. She was mistaken. I hadn't changed at all. I had finally broken free from the part they assigned me. As I gazed over the city from my luxury loft balcony that night, I understood that this was the true triumph. Not the wealth. It wasn't about the property. It was about their realization. I no longer needed them, their approval, or their idea of who I should be. In that fleeting moment, I grinned and whispered to myself, just once, for my own thrill. I didn't merely inhabit the streets. I owned the entire block.